Before we begin, I want you to imagine something. Imagine standing in a crowded ballroom where the music is loud, the lights are golden, and laughter fills the air, yet you have never felt more invisible. Now imagine being the one person brave enough to change that. If stories about quiet courage and unexpected heroes move you, stay with me until the very end. And if this story touches your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness deserve the loudest applause. The first time anyone noticed Mark Rivera at the Hawthorne Corporate Tower, it was because he was pushing a mop bucket through a sea of designer shoes. Mark was a single father, 36, with tired brown eyes and hands roughened by overtime shifts. By day, he cleaned offices. By night, he helped his 8-year-old son, Leo, with homework at their small apartment across town. He had once dreamed of being a teacher, but life had different plans after Leo's mother left when Leo was 3. Bills didn't wait for dreams, and so Mark worked, quietly, steadily, invisibly. The Hawthorne Corporation's annual charity gala was the biggest event of the year. Politicians, investors, executives, all dressed in black tie and shimmering gowns, filled the grand ballroom on the 42nd floor. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above tables dressed in white silk. Mark had been assigned to stay on standby for spills and trash. Stay out of the way, his supervisor had reminded him. Tonight is about image. Image. Mark understood image. It was the reason he wore his cleanest uniform every day. It was the reason he smiled even when executives walked past him as if he were part of the wallpaper. That night, as he cleared empty champagne flutes from a corner table, he noticed her. She couldn't have been older than 9. She wore a pale blue dress that shimmered softly under the lights. Her dark hair was pulled back with a ribbon that matched her shoes. She stood near the edge of the dance floor, her hands pressed tightly over her ears as the music swelled. People moved around her, but not to her. Around her. Mark had seen that look before. Her name was Lily Hawthorne, the CEO's daughter. Everyone in the building knew of her, though few spoke about her directly. Lily was autistic. The tabloids occasionally speculated about her. The board members whispered about how it affected public perception. At company events, she was often photographed briefly, then escorted away. But tonight, she had wandered closer to the dance floor. A group of women in glittering dresses noticed her and smiled politely before turning back to their conversation. A man nearly bumped into her and frowned as if she had stepped into his path on purpose. 2 teenagers, children of investors, giggled when Lily began to flap her hands excitedly at the changing lights. Mark's chest tightened. He thought of Leo, who struggled with reading and was teased for being slow, before Mark fought for the right tutoring. He thought of the nights Leo had asked, "Dad, why do some kids laugh when I answer questions?" Invisible pain looked the same in every child. The music shifted to something softer. Couples paired off, swaying beneath the chandeliers. Lily's eyes followed them. She stepped forward, then hesitated. Her fingers twisted the fabric of her dress. On the far side of the room stood her father, Daniel Hawthorne, CEO, billionaire, visionary. He was locked in conversation with 2 foreign investors. His smile was polished, his posture, perfect, every movement was measured. He didn't see his daughter standing alone. Mark told himself to focus on his job. He wasn't paid to interfere. He wasn't family, he was just the janitor. Then Lily walked directly toward him. He froze as she stopped inches away, looking up at him with wide, searching eyes. "You're not dancing," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. Mark glanced around, half expecting someone to redirect her. No one did. "No, sweetheart," he replied gently. "I'm working tonight." She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing the truth of his words. Then she held out her hand. "Dance with me." Time seemed to pause. Several nearby guests turned. Mark felt heat rush to his face. He imagined the whispers, the headlines if someone recorded it. The janitor on the dance floor at the CEO's gala. He could already hear his supervisor's reprimand. But Lily's hand remained outstretched, trembling slightly. In that small hand was a question far bigger than a dance. "Do I matter?" Mark swallowed. He set the tray of glasses on the nearest table, wiped his palms on his uniform, and took her hand. A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd as he led her onto the edge of the dance floor. The band continued playing, though a few musicians glanced at one another uncertainly. "I don't know fancy steps," Mark whispered. "I don't like fancy," Lily replied. He smiled. They began simply, swaying side to side. Lily's movements were uncoordinated at first, her arms jerking with excitement. Mark followed her rhythm instead of forcing his own. Slowly, she relaxed, her shoulders dropped, her laughter, light and unrestrained, rose above the music. Guests stared, some with curiosity, some with discomfort, but something unexpected happened. Lily began to spin, and Mark spun with her. She clapped in delight. The band, sensing the shift, changed the tempo to something playful. A few children drifted closer. Then one woman joined in, clapping along. A couple of younger employees stepped onto the floor. Within minutes, what had been a stiff, formal gala began to feel human. Across the room, Daniel Hawthorne finally noticed. At first, his expression darkened. He took a step forward, clearly ready to intervene. An assistant leaned toward him, whispering urgently. But Daniel stopped when he saw his daughter's face. She wasn't covering her ears anymore. She wasn't shrinking into herself. She was radiant, smiling so widely that her eyes nearly disappeared. Mark didn't see the CEO approach until the music slowed again. "Sir," Mark said quickly, stepping back. "I'm sorry if I overstepped." Daniel raised a hand. Lily looked between them. "Daddy," she said, breathless. "He dances nice." For a long moment, silence hung between the three of them. Then Daniel did something no one expected. He extended his hand, not to pull Lily away, but to Mark. "Thank you," he said quietly. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Mark nodded awkwardly. "She just wanted to dance." Daniel looked at his daughter. "Yes," he murmured. "She did." That night, videos of the dance spread across social media. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was sincere. The caption someone posted read, "When the janitor became the hero of the night." The next morning, Mark arrived at work expecting consequences. Instead, he was called to the executive floor. He had never been past the 25th floor. Daniel Hawthorne stood by the window overlooking the city. Without the gala lights and cameras, he looked less like a titan of industry and more like a tired father. "I owe you an apology," Daniel began. "For years, I've built a company that prides itself on innovation and inclusion. Yet I've failed to notice when my own daughter felt excluded in a room I created." Mark shifted uncomfortably. "You're a busy man, sir." "That's not an excuse." Daniel explained that Lily had struggled with social events for years. The noise overwhelmed her. The expectations suffocated her. He had assumed she preferred to stay away. He had never realized she simply needed someone to meet her where she was. "Last night," Daniel continued, "you did something none of us had the courage to do. You stepped out of your role." Mark thought of Leo. Sometimes kids just need one person to say yes. Daniel nodded slowly. "Would you consider helping us do better?" Within months, Hawthorne Corporation launched a comprehensive neurodiversity initiative, sensory-friendly events, inclusive hiring programs, partnerships with autism advocacy groups. Mark was offered a new position as Community Engagement Coordinator, with training provided. He hesitated at first. He had never worked in an office role. He didn't have a degree. But Daniel's response was firm. "Leadership isn't about titles. It's about heart." Mark accepted. The following year's gala looked very different. Quiet rooms were available. The music volume was moderated. Employees' families were welcomed fully, not as photo opportunities. And when the band began to play, Lily didn't stand alone. She walked confidently onto the dance floor, scanning the crowd until she found Mark, and her father, waiting. "Dance with me," she said again, this time to both of them. They did. Leo watched from a nearby table, grinning proudly at his dad. The world hadn't changed overnight. There were still whispers, still awkward stares sometimes. But something fundamental had shifted. One man in a janitor's uniform had reminded an entire corporation that dignity isn't determined by job titles, and that inclusion begins with a single act of courage. If this story moved you, remember, somewhere near you, someone is standing at the edge of the dance floor, waiting to be seen. Be the person who says yes. Be the one who takes their hand. And if you believe small acts can change big rooms, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because here, we tell stories about ordinary people who choose to do extraordinary things. Now tell me, if you had been in that ballroom, would you have stepped forward?